The Right Honourable Winston Peters.
As I was saying before, I was so rudely and foully interrupted. New Zealand is in economic and social decline and in trouble because of its blind adherence to policies that simply do not work. First, though, we want to thank the thousands of people who brought New Zealand First back to Parliament. We didn't enjoy the massive taxpayer resources or the financial resources of other parties that seem to be like a bottomless pit, or indeed the soft media idolatry that was conferred on people like Nick Smith, who had a fund and claimed to have declared it to the Parliamentary Commissioner, and she said that that was false. And it's on the order paper. So why wasn't that inquired into? Or is there one rule for you, Mr. Smith, and a different one for us? That's what's relevant here. If you want to raise that sort of issue, you've come to the right place.
Order.
Yes, sir, I understand.
The member is experienced enough to know not to bring the Speaker into the debate.
But if that member wants trouble, he's come to the right place because he's raising matters of principles on which he himself has got no credible record, unlike New Zealand First, who was the subject of an inquiry that said there was no standing order, made one up and applied it retrospectively. That's why, as I said at the start of my speech, before we were rudely interrupted, this country is pursuing policies that for over 27 years will not work. But we want to thank those people who, despite the climate in which we were operating, despite indeed the soft media idolatry that was generously conferred on some political parties, despite all the criticism, came out and worked for us and backed us. We all know that New Zealand First was on the receiving end of a seemingly deliberate blackout, boycott, media embargo that was designed to discredit and diminish us. We packed hall after hall, which is surely a demonstration of consumer political demand, or indeed that there is such a thing as a political market, only to find again and again that our message was being, to use a media term, spiked. In short, we were blacked out. And that is why I and my colleagues are deeply indebted to the New Zealand people and their sense of a fair play and a fair go. They knew that there was something rotten going on, and they were not going to be part of it. Over the past 3 years, we went the length and breadth of New Zealand. We spoke to New Zealanders from the deep south to the far north. We learned their fears and their hopes and their dreams and their aspirations of what they want for the future of their country. New Zealand First did not rely on focus groups, opinion polls, surveys and profiling to find out what the people of this country think. We simply went and visited them and listened to them. That's why New Zealand First is back here to provide a voice for New Zealanders who believe in the concept of a fair go for everybody. Our society was built on this great ideal. It's what made this a great nation once. And what we have heard from the National Party again today puts us in mind of a substance that dairy farmers wash off a cowshed floor with a strong hose. That substance smells like a scented rose compared to the stench of the deals done by the National Party and its hangers-on. For example, what happened to one law for all from the ACT Party? What happened to that? What happened to no privatisation of water from United Future? What happened to no sale of strategic assets from the Maori Party? Without these three parties selling out their principles, this government has no majority, either on election day or now. It needs deceit and deception for them to be where they are, but they do not have a mandate. Without these three parties selling out their principles, this government would not exist. Those three parties, of course, are finished. and the next election, whenever it is, even before 2014, will prove that. You can't sell out the people and get away with it like that. But there's some good news. We're back in the nick of time. And although we are but 8, lined up against the faces of irresponsible capitalism, remember that in the bold old days, a Roman soldier, Horatius, held the bridge with only 2 others. 8's enough to make a real difference here. On November 6th, you'll recall, some of you, especially my colleagues will recall, that at Kelston we warned New Zealanders what to expect. And it's exactly what has happened on election night and today. We set out in a speech the crucial issues that would bring New Zealand First back to Parliament. And you know what the fascinating thing was? Not one media outlet told the public why New Zealand First had decided to go into opposition. And today from the government you heard all the evidence that New Zealand First had made the right decision. Let's start with the giant leap into a state of apartheid called whānau ora. This is National's $1 billion bribe to the Maori Party. It's a fact. It's a fact. Never campaigned on, never told to the public, but it's $1 billion to the Maori Party. The National Party has promised the Maori Party at least $1 billion, and the papers will show it, of taxpayers' money to feed the treaty travellers, corporate Maori and so-called providers of Maori services. He says, come on, Winitana. That's my name in Maori, of course. Well, you come on. Because I want to tell that member whose party is on a roller coaster to oblivion because of the decisions they have made, a party in which Maori didn't place so much hope in their dreams, campaigned, spent all the money on them, that this is what the Maori people need. And it happens to be exactly the same thing that all New Zealanders need. They need jobs with first world wages so that they can provide for their families. They need jobs so they can retain and regain their dignity. They need housing that's warm, not housing that promises insulation for which they can't afford the power bill to warm in the first place. Not a deal that says, I know what we'll do, we will have insulation in Ngāti Porou and Ngāpui, the 2 warmest places in the country for Maori, and the rest of you can freeze. That's what the Maori Party have done, and the National Party went along with it. They need, Maori, and we all do, good health care and sound education and training. And this will not be achieved by siphoning $1 billion to set up separate agencies to deal with these matters separately. That's what we said at Kelston when we made our decision to go into opposition. And New Zealanders never heard that message because some people decided it was better that they did not hear the truth of a serious political concern in this country. Mr. Speaker, past governments of all political colours have worked hard to include Maori and to provide better housing, education, health care and employment. I remember a day when the Minister of Labour knew every unemployed person in New Zealand by name, because there weren't 27,000 or 100 and something thousand like now, or 2,700, but there were only 27 in person and not one Maori unemployed. Whatever was wrong in the past, it was not the economic strategy. And that's what's wrong now. The coalition deal between National and the Maori Party is a document that brings great shame to everyone involved in it, and all those National members will find out in the next 3 years how stupid and foolish they have been. They are the very people that campaigned on one law for all. I know it was rubbish. I know you've made it rubbish, but that was the mantra that saw the National Party get halfway back in 2005. Hardly got responsibility, and they threw it out the door. Listen to this, and I quote, National and the Maori Party agreed to support the evolving focus and ongoing implementation of whānau ora. What does evolving focus mean? That means making things up as you go along. Or another translation, thinking up better ideas to get more trotters in the trough. That's what an evolving focus is. Then there's, and I quote again, a standalone commissioning agency within 12 months. This is, of course, the new Ministry of Apartheid. And the most amazing thing is, that when the great civil rights movement of the 60s in America flowered, the black people did not want to set up their own institutions. They wanted to bust through the doors of the best white ones. And here the Maori Party and others, because of their intellectual and historical weakness, always revert to the failed strategy that sees a separate path. Oh, no, we don't. Oh, no, we don't. Kawatea was about unleashing Maori economic and social aspirations and making an equal contribution to the whole country. And at the time, coming with Kawatea was a new clause in the Ministry of Maori Development which gave the Ministry o Te Pini Kokore oversight over every other ministry. What happened? I'm asking the Maori Party that. And I'm asking the National Party as well, because they might docilely accept, as the Maori Party does, sitting at the table. But one thing New Zealand First will never do, that's sit there and have our heads rubbed. Sit there and sell out the people and have our heads rubbed by inferior human beings. That is never going to be our destiny. And it's why we're back. This is, of course, as I said, the new Ministry of Apartheid. But wait, as the saying goes, there's more. There's more. Quotes, whānau ora will increasingly bring a greater focus to address the issues of employment, housing, educational achievement and the well-being of the most vulnerable. End of quotes. Housing, educational achievement and the well-being of the most vulnerable. That, Mr. Speaker, is psychobabble. And it is sad that so many people in Maoridom have so cruelly been sold out. Employment. We thought the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister announced 171,000 jobs in the last budget. Or was that just a fraudulent document? Now, we know you can't create more jobs by setting up a separate system except for the selected treaty travellers heading for the trough. And one thing New Zealand First will never do is forget that the people in whose names and numbers the claims are made deserve to get the rewards, and they are not. Maori's situation is worse than it ever was in the last 30 years, despite the emergence of a so-called Maori Party. In case National and the Maori Party haven't noticed, there are already state agencies that deal with the same matters. TPK, or the Ministry of Maori Development, already has a statutory oversight responsibility to ensure various ministries deliver to Maori. If these ministries are not working to capacity, we suggest that Maori should look at the ministers in charge of them. And there's an old-fashioned way of motivating ministers, and it's contained in two words. One starts with K and the other with A, and it usually comes with the inverted commas. Right? We are uniquely qualified in New Zealand First to reveal the expensive separatism hidden in whānau ora. A document, I might say, that came without any analytical material whatsoever and was based on pure anecdotes. Not one analytical